It's not good. I think it's a net negative for the entirety of the police department, for both departments, truthfully. Um, Here's the thing though. I don't know what the solution is because while I agree with a lot of these things, I don't think they need to be fucking pieces of legislation. Like maybe the additional like random stuff just needs to be consolidated in one thing, but like I shouldn't have to fucking scroll 10 fucking times to get to the Constitution. That's bullshit. Marriage legislation, I don't give a fuck. Put that somewhere else. Vehicle asset forfeiture legislation, I still don't care about that. Put it somewhere else. Maybe put the FOIA shit or the VAF stuff and like some of the police shit. Like these need to be consolidated. I hate it.
Maybe if people weren't too busy running a marshal department when they should be doing all this would be a solution.
I mean, I was never a fan of the marshals being implemented. Like I think it's a good idea in theory. I think like the practical application of it is problematic. Though I will say, specifically for the aspect of looking into the police department and potential issues, I do actually believe it to be better that they are a separate department and not an internal department, because I don't care how unbiased you claim to be. There's always a level of there always is a level of bias. I mean, truthfully, I say this, you know, with the exception of my husband, and I'm biased in saying this clearly.
I was wondering, you and Dark still married?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good shit.
That man has integrity and will not let anything cloud his judgment.
And I can honestly attest to that. Dark has always been a stand-up character.
But outside of that, probably not. But outside of him, like it. Listen, Pred.
Once upon a time,
he was the assistant chief of police. Pred made him like the IA guy, and who did he immediately look into because he had valid concerns? Pred.
Yep.
And then his power pretty much got stripped as a result. So like, I do agree that it needs to be an external department to a degree, but the additional like stuff being outside of the police department's control is also probably ideal. So like I see why there are benefits to the marshals for sure, but then you run into like the daily like investigation stuff, having that not like within the PD. I don't know. It's strange. Sorry for derailing everything, guys.
Don't.
No, you're good.
We need feedback. I've been trying because I don't know a lot of people on shift 3. I've been trying to hook up with you for a long time.
Oh, you need to speak to Sky. Well, okay, so Sky's LSPD, but again, we operate as a UPD. So Lucas Lavender is also a good one, especially within the BCSO. Lucas is around daily for the most part. But I will say this. I don't think it's wise to change up leadership within the BCSO right now. It not a wise decision at all.
Okay.
Why? I'm just curious.
Because it's not in a bad place. Additionally, I also don't agree that mayor should have any control over who the actual sheriff or chief of police is. That's my personal opinion, because knowing that your position can only last for 90 days, dependent on an election entirely out of your control, regardless of how good you were within your department, I think that's fucked and will lead to there being no solid foundation to any department within the PD, like as a whole.
Okay. Have you read the legislation Pred has up right now to repeal the current sheriff voting methods? I
have not.
Okay, so we're repealing it all and going back to the straight constitution of mayor gets a point. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Our concern is SCSO puts forward, or BCSO puts forward 5 names. Okay. And the mayor gets to pick from those 5 names. How do we know that every officer is going to have a valid chance at running for it? How do we know there's not a gem that could amazingly fucking run the department, but because it's command and high command going, hey, I'm going to put your name forward, you put mine forward, and you put yours forward, these are the names we want voted on for chief. How do we know everyone's going to get a fair chance?
Well, okay, so I think repealing it entirely is probably not best course of action either. I think a better course of action would be changing it to specifically define who can submit for those. Additionally, I think anybody should be able to, sort of put their name forward, and then of all of those people, we vote, just as we have in the past many years ago.
You
right?
know how many officers and command members are against voting for a sheriff from you guys?
So I don't, to answer your question, but I think the important aspect is having a list of names of people who have put their name forward is better than other people submitting on behalf of other people.
Yeah, no, they legitimately told us in the meeting they want to keep the right and the power to submit the names.
Like I said, I do think it should be better defined, but I think it's probably not best course of action to get rid of it entirely, because then we're back at square one where somebody entirely, sort of uninvolved.
Repealing it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be acted on. It's getting it out of there. That way, new legislation can be put forth to correctively and accurately address that the problem that's there right now with how the process is done, to expand on it a bit more. That's something that is still being worked on and kind of finalized to make sure all the details are really hammered out. Yeah. And that's kind of a plan.
Look at that, Rhodes.
So why not make adjustments to the current piece of legislation? Because I feel like people would be far more comfortable not opposing if everything was spelt out, right? Because the reality here is things are going to be incredibly vague in the event where it's just removed entirely. No one knows who's going to be picked. And the fact that it could be somebody who has no experience leading a relatively newer department, again, I think that's problematic.
I understand that. I don't think that's honestly going to be much of a concern or a worry that you need to have. Granted, we all know how Pred can be. That's also, kind of why we're here, is to provide, some breaks, stop the train from going too far off the rails. But there are some things that are being worked on to correct the process. The problem with the current legislation is it would need a complete rewrite to begin with, because how things are set up currently, it detracts from the people's voice quite a bit. And what the mayors of both counties have been very explicit about is wanting the people to have a voice in their elected officials, whether it's the mayor, whether it's the sheriff or the chief of police, however that's going to be handled. Now, while down south, Nino can appoint the chief. With the current constitution, that's how it's going to be up here, but that's not exactly how it's going to stay. It's like I said, everything with that is still being evaluated and kind of worked on. It's going to take a little time to get everything done. So we're still waiting to get keys and everything up here so we can really start getting to work on stuff. But
Bill, how come this only says everyone who legally resides within Los... Oh, okay. Wait. Los Santos is a state? I thought it was a city.
Ajax, you're the one who wrote that.
Which one? Did I not update?
Number 5, everyone who legally resides within Los Santos state may vote.
Here, I'll reshare it with you, Ajax, so you can... There.
Yeah, hold on.
Number 5. Okay, so I will say I didn't
write that.
I do find it more appropriate that elections happen every 6 months. Truthfully, I would probably prefer more like 9, but I think 6 is far better than fucking 3. Okay, 3 is like, if you expect any major change to happen department wide within a 90-day period and expect solid results within that time, I think you are kidding yourself. I think
No,
progress
I
can be
100%
made,
agree.
but like, again, I think that's why a 90-day period is silly and should never be in line with mayor
Well,
elections.
and my caveat to the document that he gave you is, instead of just being current LSPD or BCSO members, personally, I think it should be open to any member of the community that has prior law enforcement experience within the city that, obviously does not have any type of violent felonies or felonies in general on their record, etc., who hasn't been discharged for any type of, corruption or fraud or things of that nature.
Okay, so I don't necessarily agree. Reason being, there's a lot of aspects of our job that are not the SOPs, for example, right? Like there's a lot of like inner workings of the police department that, despite being an attorney, for example, like there's still a lot more to know, and I do feel like it should be someone within the PD. I don't necessarily disagree with like. I think I would prefer if it was someone within the BCSO, for example, but like it's not the end of the world if it's open to anybody within a police department, whether that be the marshals, LSPD, or BCSO. That wouldn't be the biggest deal in the world for me. But like I don't know. For me, I mean, I'll tell you now, the department as a whole would be very like demotivated, and morale would be at an all-time low in the event where it was not Bones and Cassidy, considering they brought this department from the ground up, or built it from the ground up.
Yeah, no, I get that. What about public voting on it, or you think it should be restricted to LEOs?
But you want people who we arrest on a daily basis to control who lead us?
I mean,
Now, I'm not
people-
saying everybody
They've
is.
already done that with mayor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I mean, people
kind
have
of
the right to vote
problematic.
rights. Not necessarily. I mean,
That's why we're here working with you guys.
It's the people's voice, and I mean, not to take things too far out of context, but generally, the sheriff is an elected position, elected by the people. Now, the chief of police is never usually that way, because that's something that's usually appointed by a commissioner of some sort. But obviously in the city that's done by the mayor. But the sheriff has always been an elected official, serving at the will of the people.
I mean, I guess you could argue that elsewhere, though here that's not always been the case.
No. That's what I didn't want to take it too far out of context. Here,
Yeah, no.
understand that's not the case.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
But
Though I think that application is not necessarily applicable, and you already know that, considering the caveat was like,
Yeah, no, and I understand the way members of the sheriff's office would also look at that, but it's it's not just criminals in the city. There's all sorts of people in the city.
I agree.
And those people expressed their voice and wanted their voice to be heard when they voted in Nino and Pred, and giving them more of an opportunity to voice their concerns and voice either their opposition or their affirmation for who leads the department that polices them, within reason, obviously, because we're going to take candidates that are qualified for the position, but giving them that opportunity gives them a bit more understanding and a bit more transparency into the leadership that they're picking.
You want my honest opinion?
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of those people have no idea what they actually want. and instead will see a name that they recognize and vote, and that's just simply not how a sheriff or chief of police should be determined. I don't think those people are. I'm not going to say capable. I don't think they. I think they are. I'm going to say this as politely as possible because I mean no offense when I say this. I think their ignorance to the daily sort of, stuff that the police department deals with is enough to disqualify them from being the decision makers behind who leads the department. They don't know what happens on a daily basis. They don't know what it takes to deal with what happens on a daily basis. And as a result, again, I don't think they should be the ones to... Now, again, just my opinion. I just don't think they should be the ones to sort of point and choose who's the one.
I agree to a certain extent. Again, it's not like it's going to be an open free-for-all where you can put down whoever you want to put down. I mean, the mayor's office is going to determine those qualified individuals that do understand what the job entails, how things, need to work, how things do work, what it actually is going to take to legitimately do the job and do it well. And those are the people that are going to be put up. So the people's choice is going to be limited by more mitigating factors. It's not going to be something, again, where it's just a free-for-all. It's still going to be someone that's going to be qualified to be able to do the job, but it's giving the people a little bit more voice in who that person specifically is going to be.
Okay. So I have a question. Yeah. As opposed to repealing the piece of legislation regarding the mayor being able to select the sheriff, why is it not phrased as like adjusting it to like this, which is what y'all are seemingly going for?
That's not what Pred initially wants. He wants the repeal to go through, and then we have the rewrite in place to get it set up appropriately. Because again, if we were to just try to amend the current legislation, it would be a complete rewrite. It's not much of an amendment because an amendment is generally smaller changes. This is almost a complete rewrite of the process.
Okay, so while I agree, the issue stems from the fact that, like, in terms of category, I would say they fall under the same thing. Additionally, you are now leaving this period of time in which there is no, like, how do I word this? Like, obviously, we default to whatever's listed in the Constitution. Totally understand. Correct. The issue is that this has already been sort of deemed problematic, considering the prior legislation that's been put in that's now being repealed. Because, like, right, if we're talking about the people and what they want or don't want, I would imagine people would have brought up points of contention the first time it was brought up, but it wasn't. So I'm trying to find the issue now that, existed then but wasn't called out.
You'd have to talk with Pred on that one. He is the conductor of the train.
Which
I totally understand.
The sheriff legislation.
The one that's being repealed.
So, the issue of contention and how he believes it's not unconstitutional is the fact that it states in the San Andreas Constitution or Los Santos Constitution, however you want to refer to it, that sheriff is appointed by the mayor ultimately. Period.
Okay.
The way this legislation is written, it restricts his right to choose who can be sheriff and only able to pick from the 5 names provided, which, not saying it would happen, but could be concocted in such a way that it's command putting up their buddies and high command putting up their buddies saying, these are the people we want. And that's what he's worried about. He wants to get rid of that, bring it back to straight. This way anyone can run. He can choose if they're fit or not and then put them on a ballot and let the people decide.
Yeah, but if it was unconstitutional, it never would have been allowed to begin with, right? Isn't that the
Yeah.
No.
Okay,
no.
so there's lots of stuff.
The thing with the Constitution is that the mayor of each respective county is allowed to pass legislation that regards to how their county is ran and operated.
right?
So Andy constitutionally had the authority to create the legislation that she did as the mayor because that's how she thought that it should be, and that was her right to do so. Pred, being the mayor, has the authority to have it repealed because he feels and believes that it violates the Constitution and violates the rights of the people and the people's voice, as they are the ones that elected him to be the mayor to
Okay.
make the type of
So-
changes that he thinks the county needs.
Here's another good blatant disregard for what the Constitution says and people changing rules, laws, and stuff like that on a whim. Marshals. What's it say in the Constitution? They are the government oversight of government employees, PDs, DOJ, everyone, to hold us accountable, right? You get someone in power who gives herself the power to change laws whenever she wants, and now they're doing traffic stops, they're doing drug calls, they're doing murder cases, everything. But why weren't the people given the right to vote on whether or not that legislation was passed? And B, why can't we just have what the Constitution says? That's what it's there for. That's the backbone. If we want to change it, we can amend it and have a public vote.
Yeah, but the legislative audit procedure, like it states very clearly, a justice within the Senator's Department or Senator's Department of Justice will publish the matter to the docket and will summon/serve notice to appear to the party requesting the audit, as well as the individuals responsible for its passage. A hearing will be scheduled, allowing both parties to present their arguments for or against, and the justice, upon its conclusion, will render whether the law in question is constitutional or not, or if it should be stricken.
Correct.
And if-
but that, do you not
Go
see
ahead.
the conflict in there, Rhodes? When you have the head justice, also the head of the marshals, in control of the other justices, what do you think is honestly going to be changed when she controls who gets reappointed as a justice, who maintains their job as a marshal? How is there any true oversight with that?
I couldn't tell you, but that's how it's currently written.
I know how it's written.
And we're in this era of if it's not written, it ain't there. You know, it ain't in effect.
I understand, but it's incredibly hard to contest any state legislation when the controlling body of the state controls not only the judicial section, but also the investigatory and prosecutory section, being the marshals. And they are also the ones that rule on any legislation contests to see if something is invalid or not.
I mean,
See the dilemma there?
I do. Yes, I do. But like, that's a deep-rooted issue that needs to be resolved sort of separate to this issue.
No, but the thing is, it's in a way it's similar. So
I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but like using that logic, if it's not fair, then it's not even fair for, you know, Pred's submission of the revoking of it.
So I would say that the difference is going to be the mindset behind the legislation itself. So this is being revoked to give power back to the people who elected the mayor to make the choices that they elected him to make. And again, it has to be a complete rewrite. It's not going to be able to just to be an amendment because the entirety of the process is being changed. So just trying to amend it.
No, the rewrite, if it's going to be titled the same and categorically be the same, which is, you know, referencing the mayor's appointment of the sheriff, then it should fall under the exact same thing. This legislation will provide the requirements and process that the mayor of Blaine County must follow when choosing to appoint a new sheriff to preside over the Blaine County Sheriff's Office. Therefore, everything beneath that can be changed and adjusted to the new piece of legislation that y'all want to push. But what I'm telling you is that nobody is going to trust you guys. Nobody's going to trust Pred. Well, hold on. Nobody's going to trust Pred or anybody he appoints if the plan publicly is to revoke this and then submit a new one, which is likely going to be titled Appointment of the Sheriff and include the requirements and process that the mayor of the Blaine County must follow, right? Like, the point I'm trying to say here is if categorically they are the same, they fall under the same thing, there'd be a lot of overlap amongst them, which there absolutely would be in this case, then it should be this being changed to that as opposed to this being removed, there being a period of time in which there is no additional requirements or process in effect, and then the new one being implemented.
So I may be mistaken on this part. I have to read back through, but state legislation gets passed through without a hitch. Okay, county legislation, does it not have to get voted on?
I don't believe so. I think it's a similar
think it's
process
contested.
regarding a similar process regarding whether or not there's any points of contention. And if there is, then it goes to the DOJ.
Okay, so the DOJ, though, instills law without giving anyone a chance to contest it. Have you not noticed that? The Marshall legislation, Angel changing the contesting limits, how many signatures you needed, and the cash payment to contest legislation in the middle of the food court when Ursula came up to complain to her about it. There is no fair ruling on any of this, dude. And then you go to the marshals to have it investigated, and they say, "Oh, we don't care."
But that's not my point. Is that with the new legislation, it's going to go back up. It's going to give the people an opportunity to see it, and not just the people. I mean, you guys will have the opportunity to see it. You'll have the opportunity to contest it if you feel that it's going to be harmful or whatever your reasoning is going to be before the new legislation actually gets made into law. And therefore, if there is contestation, changes can be made to make more of a unifying voice for everybody. Again, the goal is not just to ramrod shit down everybody's throats and be like, okay, here, deal with it.
Yeah, but nobody's going to believe that. And the reason, again, nobody's going to believe that is because there is a simple solution, which is amending the current piece to the adjusted one, as opposed to, again, the removal and then reimplementation of similar legislation with certain things changed, right? I'll be real. No one is going to believe or trust that that is the intent if it's not an amendment as opposed to, delete, re-add. There leaves too much of a gap, truthfully. Not only that, I don't know why. Do y'all think the sheriff and undersheriff should be changed?
Well,
Yes and no.
Why?
I would say my position would be that if things aren't being adequately done to maintain a proper level of I would say decorum is a good word among the sheriff's deputies, and to mitigate their negative conduct, especially in with what happened to me, with finding out about what happened to Pred, and knowing what's happened to civilians around the county, then yeah, something needs to be adjusted. And you know me well enough. I spent the majority of my career fighting against the state, whether it was the sheriff's office, whether it was the LSPD, whether it was the state in general, defending people. So, I'm all for accountability. And if people aren't, if the individuals in charge aren't holding people accountable to standards that the people feel they should be, granted, obviously you can't give everybody what they want, because then there wouldn't be any cops. Everybody would be fired because everybody's going to cry about something. But there should be some level of accountability other than fucking DAP points and the like, when you create situations or cause situations and then don't take responsibility for what you did and then go cry like a little bitch.
I mean, do you actually think? Okay, let me sort of gather information from you. In a situation like that, what consequence do you feel would be appropriate?
Honestly, I probably would have suspended all 3 officers involved.
For how long?
I would say no more than 3 days.
Okay. So if
You
we're
realize, though, 3 days, they're not going to want to come back on duty. Now you just lost manpower.
That's not my problem. They can take that up with themselves and their conduct.
Yeah. I think you're thinking too much in terms of other states. You know what I mean?
No, no, I'm honestly not, because I remember back when, as lawyers, we would get suspensions for shit. I remember being suspended by Stanton once upon a time. And, it was a 72-hour suspension.
yeah, I
but
think the
also
problem
someone
is
who's-
the now again, I wasn't present for your situation specifically. However, I think the consequence associated with we'll say a level of unprofessionalism, the consequence of that should not outweigh felony charges. Like I think that's silly. While I understand that in your situation, yeah, obviously you feel as if you were wronged. Again, based upon what you told me, it's fucked up that you would have been disbarred. I think the problematic thing is then suspending 3 people for up to 3 days for. I mean, if we exclude the portion of like, you getting disbarred because we're going to the root of them talking shit essentially and causing whatever problem. I think that's far too excessive. But also, I say that from somebody with insider information regarding the day to day, right? Like it is
Sure.
not worth. Unfortunately, again, it's fucked up. But it is what it is. It is not worth losing the manpower that we need, suspending 3 people for 3 days, and then leaving the police department in an incredibly down bad state, during that time for the following 3 days. Like,
here's my view.
Like there are trade-offs that, again, I think people need, sort of insider information to be able to acknowledge and know. And you're saying this as somebody who's been in the Department of Justice and has a general understanding of how the police department works. But, and again, you're also saying this from the perspective of having been disbarred because of these people. So I understand, especially if it was done unfairly. But it's like, again, somebody being in a position of power without having or knowing the ins and outs of the PD is problematic, which is why, sort of circling back to, the appointment of sheriff and undersheriff, I think the removal of current legislation is problematic. If it's working now, I don't see why we have to reconsider it.
Yeah, he thinks it's quality of officers that have been let out in these guys' power. But I'll say something. As someone who's been disciplined a lot, okay, I've been disbarred, I've been sued by cops, I've been sued by the DOJ, a lot of discipline. I think the biggest issue is transparency, and that doesn't matter if it's police, DOJ,
I agree.
EMS, anywhere. I don't know what the hell adapt means to an officer. Okay. I also don't know why someone wouldn't go get both sides of the story, or why there's not a tool for even an arbitration position where you have a complaint against an officer, they want to defend their job, whether it's high command, supervisor, whoever. Here's your mediator. Work it out. Talk about it. If it's overwhelming evidence and the guy really did and it was malicious, then you issue discipline. But it's just shoot from the hip and tough shit. And that's what really sucks about this.
Well, then,
I
would
agree.
be willing to bet that there was no report filed by that sergeant regarding those 2 officers' conduct. I would bet fucking money.
Yeah, but
that's my biggest problem.
Documents, so that's internal documents. We wouldn't be able to FOIA that either.
No, I understand that, but like I said, I'd be willing to fucking bet money, and that's my biggest issue with it, is that I personally didn't give a fuck regarding the situation. People run their mouths, people talk shit. It is what it is.
Right.
I wouldn't have even thought of going to file a complaint on those officers because it doesn't affect me to that level. You know, but again, if you disrespect me, I'm gonna disrespect you back. That's just how it is. I'm a
Yep.
man of respect.
I'm an energy matcher. I'm with you.
Yeah, but the fact that now, again, I've been disbarred over this, over a situation that they directly started and caused because their little fucking feelings got hurt because they don't know how to shut the fuck up. That's where I have an issue.
I mean, you're kind of like me though. Admit it. You fight back.
I will absolutely fight back when I'm pushed. And I will absolutely be a vindictive asshole when I've been wronged unjustly. But I'm also fair and will fight for what's fucking right. Now, am I saying they deserve to be suspended for 3 days? No. I said no more than that. Absolutely. Is in this situation, would a 3-day be just? Probably not, because that is fairly severe. Can I tell you why I got fucking suspended for 3 days? Fuck no, it's been way too long ago. I'm pretty sure it was something stupid, and I think he repealed it like after half.
I got a week suspension for punching an officer before Storm.
The problem is definitely lack of accountability, and just knowing that obviously if I got that, and because so I had to have a conversation with Grayson when this happened. The only thing he got was their side of it, and there was no mention at all of their conduct. It was just mine.
I mean, I'm not surprised, truthfully. See, unlike most,
that's where I have the issue. Is that, like I said, I know for a fact that sergeant who is in a position of power did absolutely nothing to correct that action professionally in regards to their action as officers on duty with what they did. Yet again, they went straight for my fucking license. It's definitely bullshit.
Yeah.
So, okay, so it's on the basis of people not being held accountable is why you would want a change in sheriff.
Not being held accountable. I mean, if the transparency level was fixed, I think that would bring put his mind at ease more. Because we honestly don't even have a way to tell if they were honestly tapped or what it means.
That's what I was going to bring up.
So,
okay.
How do we know there was actually something done about it? Even like, I'm not saying that an officer should be suspended for 3 days, because I've been on that end. It fucking sucks. If you do something to deserve it, yeah.
Sorry,
by all
gentlemen.
means.
I'll be right back.
You're good.
For a second.
By all means, if you deserve it, take it. But for something minor like this, that's too strict. But at the same time, there's no transparency anywhere.
I agree with that. I do believe that we're on the same page there regarding transparency, because the public is never going to find themselves ever having been made whole, because in the event where somebody did do wrong and internally it is deemed as problematic and they were given internal punishment, that person never knows. And as a result, they feel it's been swept under the rug, not realizing that it's been documented. The individuals have been, given a consequence associated with whatever it was that happened. But on the same sort of topic here, it's like, while I understand that there can be issues that are department wide, which I think would reflect and should reflect on, the people at the top. When you're dealing with hundreds of people in a department, I don't think it's reasonable to say, amongst these 2 or 3 bad experiences, the sheriff should change. I think that is a complete net negative, in comparison to having conversations, discussing the issues at hand, and working on making sure that stuff doesn't happen. Because I'm telling you now, if the sheriff or undersheriff changes, it is not going to be for the betterment of the BCSO at all. And Pred would know that firsthand, because it happened to us multiple times. only for us to get our positions back and continuously run the most successful iteration of the PD. And that was primarily
Sorry.
just because we delegated really fucking well.
Yeah. Well, you need a good team under you. That's
You
the
do.
important thing.
You most certainly do.
Okay. I'll just summarize everything so far because
Okay.
I think we did get off track a bit.
No, you're good.
You and Dark are both going to apply for sheriff. You don't really have the proper equipment for the jobs. Performance of vehicles aren't really suitable for pursuits. Stage 2 parts are 120,000 every 30 days. Can't make 120,000 even before the wage cuts. And then everything about the leadership, how changing it is bad. It's been proven in history to be bad. There does need to be more transparency on both parties. Anything I've missed so far?
That I firmly believe that the current piece of legislation should not change personally, but if it were to be pushed for a change, it should not be complete removal and then an additional legislation. It should be an amendment of the current piece of legislation.
Did you know it's actually harder to get an
What
amendment
did you
through
just do?
than to just rip the thing down and put a new one up?
Yeah, but it would make people feel more comfortable not opposing it because again, you run into that weird period of defaulting back to just I would personally say like unhinged bullshit. Ain't no one telling me 90 days for high command is nope, ain't happening.
Okay. No. Is there anyone on your shift that really likes law?
Really
That
likes
is
law.
down to earth, knows legislation, has a good rapport with people, citizens.
I might have to get back to you on that one. I think I might have to think that over.
Okay. Hey,
Hello.
Miss Hall, how are you?
How are you guys?
Hey,
Not too
Jenny.
bad. Trying to convince Rhodes here to
Hey,
sign the
Rhodes.
application.
Absolutely not.
What application?
No.
For sheriff.
I'll
So
be
that he
back
can
shortly.
be
I gotta
interviewed.
take off for.
You're good.
So-
That sounds like hell, and I don't think Rhodes needs that hell in his life.
Okay, well,
Let me
then
put
he
this
can
into
talk to Dark.
perspective. You did mention, Dark and I applying to be sheriff and whatnot. Definitely not. But I'm currently
I
a
got your
senior,
ID,
and I
but-
don't even want to be a senior. That's
fair,
the
yeah.
reality. I had this conversation with Hall.
We got some fake ass sheriffs out behind the building. You want to fucking get rid of them?
No, I'm not too worried. I'm not worried.
They are impersonating a goddamn officer, Rhodes.
You know what? That's
You know,
that's not okay. That's illegal.
If you, that's right. If you don't go take care of it, I'm filing a complaint on you.
Have at it.
I mean,
Here's the
stop.
reality. I'll give you a quick TLDR of what happened. This police department was formed like 10-ish months ago. When it was formed, there was a severe level of a lack of recruitment. As a result, the skeleton crew, which was intended to build up foundation, of the new PD, was burnt out within no more than 30 days. Then we were essentially placed on a 2-lane highway, given cadets with no experience, essentially them being the equivalent of fucking those wide load trailers carrying a fucking nuke on the back, or like, the blades of a wind turbine, and they have to fucking shut down the highway because nobody can pass because shit's so big. We had to travel on a 2-lane highway essentially with only cadets that were requiring that level of attention despite already being burnt out. And then it was just one thing after another, literally not being able to afford fucking repairs on vehicles. The state providing the police department nothing. Expecting, individual officers to pay $10,000 for new engine replacements on shared vehicles, despite officers having very little fucking money because we weren't being paid shit. And then it just goes on and on and on with the level of recruitment that did not happen, resulting in this constant conveyor belt of crime not stopping, just continuously being shoved into our fucking mouth that we had to continuously respond to. The countless stabbings and shootings at fucking senior buns every single day. I have written countless reports. And actually, I think this metric will put it into context for you, Bill. Bill, do you know how many arrest warrants I've written in the past 10 months?
I mean, you haven't been around for a couple of weeks, so maybe 5?
No, 10 months. In the past 10 months. Don't worry, I'll tell you. 1.
No clue. Why?
Because there simply wasn't enough time when the conveyor belt of crime does not stop, and I can't deal with what's in front of me. How am I expected to deal with writing an arrest warrant when I can't even stop and get a fucking drink without seeing somebody get stabbed in front of me? Now, to be fair, some of that stuff has calmed down, and recruitment did get better. But that's, that was like, I don't know exactly. But things did get better, right? But then we're back into this like phase of catch up where, like, 3 months ago is probably where the police department should have been 9 months ago. And we are training new cadets to replace the people who are burnt out, and not really, like, we're making progress, yes, but it's not like it's not like the best case scenario. Again, considerably better than before. But a couple months ago, when people were asking how I was doing, you know what I would tell them? I felt like I was fucking drowning. Didn't matter where I looked, didn't matter what I was doing. Like, I had no me time because there simply was not enough of us. How is that okay 8 months later? A few months later, sure. But 8 months? That's no bueno.
I totally, I understand that. I mean, as a lawyer, we'd get burnt out too because new ones would show up, get thrown to the wolves, and then want to run away.
Yep.
So we're trying to manage teaching and training and everything else while trying to manage our own caseload and
it becomes a borderline impossible task. Yeah.
It was. But okay, so like the stage 2 parts and the
that's, by the way, they go up to 5. And from what I was told, it's 10,000 per stage per part. So if you want a stage 5 part, that shit $50,000.
Jesus. Okay.
That's what I was quoted. I spoke with Dill.
$50,000 and it goes bad quick.
30 days is what I was told. I was told don't expect them bitches to last longer than 30 days.
Okay.
Now that car with those parts, you're looking at $500,000. Wait, is that maths?
I don't
know.
I
250.
don't even know how many parts
250.
are in a car.
Me neither.
There's like 50,000 maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know.
My car got like a turbulator or something. I don't know.
Well, you got the seat belt, the clamp on the ground. So each one of those is $50,000, and then the seat and the gear shifter. Oh my god.
Yep.
Okay, but I mean, like those are brain dead, easy things to fix. How do we fix the recruitment and staffing?
Well, so that is getting better, for sure. Recruitment is happening amongst both departments.
But firing sheriff would hinder this.
It really depends. Like I said, I do believe if the sheriff were to be changed, people in charge of those departments would be heavily demotivated. So yeah, that would be a massive hurdle to come over and actually get past, truthfully. Is that a guarantee? No, I think it's highly likely though. Especially if somebody were to be put into that position that people within the current department don't like. I mean, hell,
I get
look
that.
at what happened with the LSPD. Nothing against Moss or Peters at all. I think they're you know, I think they had the best of intentions, but sometimes you need to have been around the block a few times to know exactly what you're going to be dealing with and be able to see the writing on the wall and to be able to know based upon, you know, the track record of trying something that it ain't ever going to work, regardless of how good your intentions are.
Yeah. No, I get that. I do. But that's also why we're trying to make the effort to come out and learn before. So if Kyle asks me to write something, I can say, no, that's a bad idea. This is why, instead of just blindly writing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I did the same for Nino.
I mean, I think it would be best that you guys speak with just much like you contacted me. You know, speaking with newer cadets, speaking with experienced officers, command, high command, you know, the sheriff and undersheriff themselves to discuss, you know, what they believe should happen, to see if it's in line with what you guys were already thinking. Because if it is, then there isn't a change that's necessary.
Yeah. No, I had a good meeting with command.
That's
a
good.
couple of their members the other day. My issue is my stigma. I'm an idiot, and there are select officers and citizens who are never gonna, you know, let that go. So, working for Pred brings that out more, you know. But
you know what? I mean, kind of. I'm not gonna say kind of fair. As someone who worked under Pred, listen, I knew my job. My job was to, you know, challenge Pred in a manner in which Jenny too, in a manner in which, you know, he had these overzealous ideas at times, and just had to be told the reality of, like, that's not practical, and then pull him to center, and then we would come to a agreement that was a middle ground that worked great for everybody. Was it perfectly in each other's side? No. But it, like, the conversation, I think, is the important part. Like, having somebody that you can actually speak to and have an opinion that isn't identical and come to that middle ground is far more valuable than, you know, someone who's just gonna be like, oh yeah, that's a great idea, let's do it, with no challenges.
yeah, well, that's why I think we worked together. Even when we did court cases together, it was kind of yin and yang. I don't level them out nearly as much as you or Jenny did, but yeah, I'm up for the challenge. My question is, how do you get them to read the paperwork?
Oh, you
No.
you
sign
can't.
stuff?
No, you
No.
can't. You
So
have to.
You go to him with the paperwork. Actually, you know what? You'll have to figure it out.
No, don't do that,
Nah,
Jenny.
this
Come
shit
on.
don't come free. Are you kidding
I
me?
want
I'm
you
not
to
gonna-
know,
Yeah, no.
Bill, I know that you are likely going to end up being responsible for writing a bunch of stuff, but I need you to know that if he ever hands you something that is written, number one, it wasn't written by him. Two,
No.
likely AI. Three, if not AI, text to speech.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. He wants me to make his words professional, is how he puts it. So his ideas for legislation, he wants me to clean them up somehow.
I mean, I do think legislation does need to be cleaned up. It's
my
it's
God,
a fucking
it
mess
does.
right now.
Yeah.
It is a fucking mess.
Like, I mean, we got probably about 15 pieces
Thank you for the
made
56
already.
months. I appreciate it.
But again, that goes back to your issue about why are things so different here than in the city and vice versa, and how do you keep it all straight?
You mean
It's not even that. I think there are pieces of legislation that don't need to exist. Like,
there's so many pieces of legislation that don't even matter yet. Like the fucking pets one, it doesn't matter.
Or I hate to point it out, but why do we need legislation about how you guys can train for pursuits? Isn't that just inherent in SOPs?
I think that's so that, like, you know, you can't sue them
yes,
by breaking
but
the law in the area. But I
because-
think it's redundant.
I think there needs to be, like, umbrella pieces of legislation that you can look within, as opposed to there being, again, like 50 fucking different
ones,
pieces.
yeah.
Like, again, you know, I think search warrant stuff and FOIA stuff and all that shit should come under, you know, the law enforcement shit, because again, to have to search for each individual piece is stupid. The fishing legislation, there's fucking like deep sea fishing shit. Who goes deep sea fishing, and why the fuck do we need a piece of legislation?
Yeah, I don't know why I had to write that one. Okay, I just did as a good soldier.
But the point I'm trying to make is that right now it serves no purpose but to like make this legislation tab a fucking pain to look at. What did you just
here's
do?
a good counter to that, though. All those business legislations that we passed in Nino's office, the mechanics, the stab, big PP, whatever the fuck the names were picked. I didn't do that, but we submitted those all as one, and we were told this legislation's too big. Break it down.
I mean, I think, and also think that they all suffer from as well is how much bump you put in them. Like literally, sometimes you just write the same sentence twice in 2 different ways, and that's so frustrating to read. Because as I want to say this, I love paperwork, I love reading shit, but oh my god, that legislation to read is a ball ache. And I'm sitting there like, and I'm like, this can be simplified. And I think that's part of it. Is the reason why people aren't investing in things is because it's overcomplicated and it's not simplified, and so people just stop caring.
So that though was a product of the openness, because there's about, like you see on our legislation board, there's a bunch of us working on it. Nino's was a little more, everyone gets in a circle and starts editing the same document all at one time and talking about it and then submitting it when they all agree without proofreading.
Yeah,
That's
that needs
what
to.
I'm
Yeah,
trying
it's
to
just,
avoid with this system that we have.
Yeah, I mean, I read one of the legislations and they said the same thing 3 times, just in different ways, and I was like, this is redundant. It just
I'm gonna
sounds like
need
you're trying to
retweets.
confuse us.
I'm gonna need retweets. I hate legislation. That's my opinion. Oh, Pred's calling me. Hey, Pred, how's it going?
Looks like I picked a convenient time to wake up seeing that twat of yours.
Oh, you just
Holy
wake
shit.
up?
As soon as I fucking crawled out of my beanbag chair, I just see a twat saying legislation needs to be simplified on my phone.
It's true. There's too damn much. I hate it.
Well, you know what the issue is when you simplify legislation, though, Rhodes?
What?
Comes
But yeah,
harder to
Jimmy,
fight
that's
and
why we're trying to
have
go on the
case
whoever
laws and
owns
stuff
the piece of
develop. And when
legislation,
the
whoever's
interpretation of
responsible
law
for
is just
writing
so
that one
simple
has
and
edit
broad,
access, and then everyone
you
else
know,
gets
then you're
direct
not able to
access.
really have
So
Pretty much, yeah.
articulate
That's the
arguments
way to do
over
it.
circumstantial evidence
Because
and
there's no reason some of those
affairs and
legislations, as long as
occurrences
they
and
have,
different crimes.
can be.
Yeah, but it's too this
There's a lot
era
of
of like
dick
if it's not
swinging, too,
explicitly
like,
written, like
I'm
it
gonna write
doesn't.
this and
It's
make
too
it
problematic.
complicated and
You know,
Yeah, but
like,
then how do you change that though? Think about it. I mean,
well, we
they're
have to push
already on the
stuff and-
path.
Well, the
Matt,
thing
tell
is,
him
we
to
have
come
to
to the
push stuff,
office.
and then, well, Bill, I have to go. But, Pred, here's a big problematic thing right now. There
I'm
is no
listening.
piece of legislation that makes pushing hot guns acceptable. Outside of them being in possession of the gun, how can we prove beyond a reasonable doubt 20 days ago they shot someone? That person with the
Isn't
gun
it-
now, 20 days later, how do we prove that?
Was it constructive possession, right? I mean,
Well,
you can
the
infer
constructive
that they
possession
did.
just means that you're no. Constructive possession just means that you had the ability to be in control of it, right? But me being
Yeah.
in possession of a gun now does not mean I shot someone 20 days ago.
I agree. Yeah, I always thought that they should just be a simple possession charge and then looked into. You know what I mean? It makes more sense. You just charge them with the possession, and then it's involved in X and Y. Time to investigate X and Y because the door's been open. Maybe we can get more charges on this guy.
Yeah, but then you can't
Yeah.
even do that because if you charge them with possession of the gun, you can't. Well, at least previously it's been ruled that if
It's
they
not
got
double
processed,
jeopardy though, because
It-
you're charging because the possession is a different action in a different event, right? I
so
mean,
I
of course you can say
agree, but
Yeah.
they follow instances like that events occurred, not like the actual.
yeah, I get what you're saying.
Like if I process
I mean,
somebody
me
for
and
a
you
scene
both have a
now, and
legal
then I
mind.
go,
We understand.
and then I go, oh fuck, I forgot to charge him with this. It's too late because they've already been processed for that situation. That's why it's problematic.
I mean, the way it should be looked at. All right, my partner is. It should be looked at as separate incidences. right? I mean, one's a violent crime, the other one's a possession crime. You know, it's not double jeopardy. It's not, you're not charging them for possessing it for the like during the shooting. You're charging them for possessing it after the fact, and then you look into the shooting cause. You know, no, their DNA